When you're ready to start browsing the internet and you don't know where to begin, you're going to start with the Start menu, which is this button in the bottom left here. When you hover over that, it says that right in the tooltip, Start. I'm going to select that and look for Internet Explorer, because this is the default web browser that's installed on every Windows computer. To open that up, I'm going to select here. To get started, let's go over some of the basics about what a web browser is. A web browser helps you view web pages, which is kind of like a magazine article printed on the internet. In this case, everybody can host their own magazines from their own computers, and our web browser helps us find those magazines. To use the web browser, there's a few controls you'll want to know about. If you click something and it takes you to a new page that you didn't want to go to, you're going to select the back button. This will take you to the previous page. If you want to go back to that page that you just hit back from, you can hit the forward button. This is the search bar. It's also the address bar. So if you know an exact address, like CNN.com, this is how you'll get there. If you don't know the exact address, you could just type in search terms. Like, once you type your search terms, you just hit enter. So let's go ahead and try out a search. Let's look up information about a Honda Accord 2005. As you can see down here, these are some other searches that it's suggesting. This is just a compilation of other searches that people have done, and it's saying, hey, this search is used a lot. Maybe this is what you're looking for. It's usually called autocomplete. To do the search, you just select enter like I did. So let's practice searching around a little bit. So let's go to Edmunds.com. So right up here are banners, and on the side here is another advertisement. Now, luckily, these are actually both the same advertisement, but many times these will be completely different, making it a little bit confusing. It's also important to know these locations because advertisers will try to make their advertisement look like the web page. So it's probably best to stick with the websites that you're familiar with for the first couple of weeks. Scrolling down here, we can see the information we were looking for. It tells us the different types of styles, gives us different search engines. Looks like down here gives us some information about different subversions of that model. We have information about hybrids and the EX and so on, and generally just a price range for what to expect. We have the gas mileage right here, so this is a pretty useful web page. Now let's say I actually want to go back to this page, and I don't want to do the search all over again. There's a couple of ways you can save this. First off, this little star right up here is your favorites menu. Once you click this button and open up the menu, you see all of your favorites. So right here I have a list of sites. That's fine. Let's go ahead and try to save this. In order to do that, we can select the button up here and select Add to Favorites. And it'll ask us, what do you want to call this? Now, this is pretty descriptive. If it wasn't, and say it had a bunch of gibberish, I could erase that and type in whatever I want. I'm going to call this 2005 Honda Accord. And we're going to select Add. So now what it's done is added a new entry at the bottom of my favorites. And if I want to store this in a folder, I can left-click and drag into a different folder and store it there. It opens up that folder, and voila, the favorite has now been moved. That helps when you get hundreds of favorites and you don't want to keep scrolling down just to find it. Now notice when I type Honda again, what happens is it provides a few different new sections because we've already done a search. Notice that now that I've typed Honda, it gives me 3 different sections for new searches. In this case, we have history. These are web pages we've been to, both a Google search and this particular web page. We now have a favorite with the word Honda in it, and it's bringing that up. And then finally, it shows us new searches that Google is suggesting. So that's pretty handy. All right, let's do a new search. I'm going to select the back button to bring us back to our previous page. That didn't work. Let's try again. Okay, not quite there. Let's try one more time. And here we go. Okay. So there's other types of searches we can do. Let's go ahead and select all that, and we'll hit backspace. Let's try a search for hospitals near me. This is a sort of a special search that Google is capable of doing. It sort of knows where you're located, and it can do searches based off of your location. This right here is a little widget just for the Google Maps application. Let's go ahead and choose it. What it does is bring up a larger map and gives us search results based on geographic location, which is really handy because the internet should be useful for everyday life. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here. And now that I'm in here, I can see this and provide myself with some more information about each individual place. So now I've selected Northern VA Community Hospital. I get their address, I get their phone number, which I can now call them with. Let's try something with more information. Okay, it's pretty useful. This one has some reviews. Good to know, I guess. You don't want to go to a hospital that everybody hates. So this is useful. Somebody has put in the hours for this location. Now you can find out when they're open and schedule accordingly. Now let's figure out how to get there. If I select directions, it should bring up the Google Maps webpage and provide me directions, and I can give it a source location. Let's say from the White House. Okay. It's loading down here. We'll give it a moment. The neat thing here is it's provided directions for some mode of transportation that is not a car. So we have 2 routes for cars, and it tells us it's about 18 minutes away. However, we can also take a bus. Oh, I'm sorry, this isn't the bus. This is actually the metro. So it's telling us we can walk to a metro station, the orange line, and then it'll transfer to silver, and we can walk from that metro station to the hospital. Let's get some details on that and find out some more information. Google Maps is also capable of doing this with bus directions as well, so we'll give that a moment to load. Here we go. Looks like we have about 6 minutes of walking on the front end and about 6 minutes of walking on the rear. So that's pretty good to know. We don't have to drive there. If we don't have a car that day, then we can just take the metro. If I want to go back up here, instead of hitting the back button, which can work as well, sometimes there are back buttons within the web page. I'm going to select that one just so I don't lose my search. Let's try the route with Constitution Avenue. And if you have a phone that you're doing this on, you can definitely get directions and have it provide turn-by-turn directions. Okay, and here we have a summary of the overall directions just for driving. So, good to know. Now, of course, we can do other searches that aren't just hospitals. You can do searches for restaurants. That can be extremely handy if you want to try a new place, but you don't want to just guess and check and hope that it's not terrible. So we've got quite a few restaurants to choose from here. Okay, and we can change the search here by just moving it around and hitting search again. So I'm going to narrow this down and make it a little cheaper by selecting any price and changing that to these 2. So these are the 2 cheaper ends, that's fine. Let's switch that over to nothing less than 4 stars, and we'll stick with American food today. And there we go. We get far fewer results. Now we can sort of zoom in based on location. Let's move that down. We can also use the scroll wheel on the mouse and sort of narrow down. Oh, okay, so there's a couple of places here. We can choose those and get directions, reviews, and all sorts of information. If you have a smartphone, you can probably have the information sent to your smartphone, which is pretty handy. Or you can just do the search again under your smartphone's Maps application. So moving on, let's dissect a little bit more about searches. I did a search for attorneys in Northern Virginia. Now there's a few things to know. Anything that says ad means that they paid to have that slot put there, so it may not actually be the best search result for me. If I scroll down, I can get to the search results that do not have ad listed. So commercial sites can be trusted, but it's best to actually confirm that the organization is someone you trust as well. So for instance, attorneys.superlawyers.com, I don't really know much about them, but they could be okay. If it's a .gov, like let's just say I want to search out Northern Virginia government, and I want to find information specifically related to the government, the .gov domain can only be held by a government entity, so a regular business can't open a .gov website. If I choose anything else, such as a .org, which is an organizational one, that can be good, but there's really no guarantee about the information like there is with .gov. .coms can also be trusted if you're familiar with the site. You'll eventually grow to recognize certain business names, just like you do in the real world. The domain name trick is just sort of a nice reference point for when you don't know what you're looking for. Now let's say you want to save some of this information for later use. So let's say I want to find some information about local agencies. So this one looks like it might be useful. Let's highlight that by left-clicking and dragging, and we'll right-click and choose Copy. Then I'm going to go down to WordPad, which is something that every Windows computer has, and I'm going to paste that. I'm going to right-click and choose Paste. So now I've got some information there. If I want to save, for instance, some actual paragraph of information or something like that, I can select one of these. Okay, so this looks like it might be relevant to whatever it is I'm researching. I'm going to highlight all of it, right-click, choose Copy. I'll go back to WordPad, drop down a little bit, and choose Paste. Now if I go up here, do Save As, I'm going to save it to my desktop so I know exactly where it is. In case you don't know, this right here is your desktop. Let's go back. So I've got the save page back open. I'm going to save this to my desktop and call this Virginia.rtf. That's fine. Okay. Now whenever I want to go back to that, Virginia.rtf file, I can just double click. Now that I've opened it up, I can review it and edit it and save it for later, so I don't have to rely on always being able to search out on the internet for what it was I was looking for. Anyway, I hope this was informative for everybody, and I'd like to thank you for watching.